Woo! Hello, G-Semp. J-Semp. Oh my God, the mistake that I'll never stop making. J-Semp, Joyful Soul Expansion Mentorship Program. First call of June. I'm very excited about the call tonight. Um, for those of you who have been in the program for a long time, we're going to go deep into some cellular breathing, which we haven't done in a while. And for me, I think it's one of my favorite like energy expansion methods in the field of the body, because it takes away the whole kind of like it takes away the whole uh contraction of consciousness into lines and ideas of top, bottom, right, left, front, back. All of a sudden, all these kind of 3D linear spatial locations get kind of collapsed into a quantum field, which is much more about a core and a boundary. And it's not like there's like the front of the boundary and the back of the boundary. No, there's just the core and the boundary of it. And the best metaphor to work with for this is a cell, the way a cell is made, with its core, le noyau, and then there's like a vast space full of liquid, and there's like whatever, there's like little things floating around in there doing stuff, and then the boundary of the cell. And what's really trippy is that what can now be called the field of quantum biology, as opposed to old school positivistic biology, they have come to demonstrate through work by Bruce Lipton, is one of the pioneers of this understanding. Like, he's done a lot of work around, I think it's called the biology of belief and stuff like that, but he's explained a lot about the epigenetics and how different things are influence, not cause, because we're talking quantum here, so there's no more cause effect, influence what will emerge from something. So what he was doing is he had like, don't quote me on this because you could go look up his research to get the exact details, but basically he had 3 petri dishes and he put the same kind of cell in each dish, but the environment in the dish was different. And what he got to observe is that each cell changed what it was in order to function within that environment. So that allowed him to come to this conclusion that's very, very, I don't know, the repercussions of it are enormous. And honestly, the whole academic field is still trying to figure out what the frick they're supposed to do with quantum understanding. But basically what that allowed to show is that the core of the cell isn't really the brain. It's the boundary of the cell. That's the brain. The boundary, what is interacting with the environment is what informs, is what sends the information to the core of the cell of what needs to be activated within it. Okay, so this might seem super like, well, duh, like maybe if you're part of the younger generations, it's that quantum understanding is already, it's already well established within your mind and your, your cellular structure. But for older generations, we were basically taught in university and whatever throughout our lives that it's like the core of the cell has the DNA, and the DNA is the law. It is the law. Whatever's in the DNA is what's going to happen. And what that research and that whole growing field is coming to understand is that that's bullshit. It's bullshit. There's a bunch of stuff in the noyau, in the core, but there's no such thing as set laws within the core that, what to say, like that dominate what's gonna express itself. It's actually the other way around, which it's easy to understand that if you think about upbringing, like the way you're raised will affect how you act. But to act like only that is true, is bullshit either, right? So that's the whole nature versus nurture age-old debate in university. It's both. It's both. So what's going on in the outer environment influences what the core will activate in order to function in that environment, in order to adapt to that environment. And hence, if you're growing up with a bunch of sociopaths, you'll basically kind of like adapt to that. And great example, Julie. And the parts of your DNA that understand how to just splice off the empathic brain from the rest of the functioning will do it, because that's what you need in that environment to survive. So from this is really deep stuff to think about and to ponder and to contemplate. We can't walk around either with this energy of, you know, that's the way I was raised, nothing I can do about it. My dad was like this, like, we can't do that, but we can't either be in this place where we're like, you know, perfect ego, I am God, I define myself, I decide everything about myself. We have to find that place where we understand that there is a constant breathing process, right? Between these two brains, between the boundary and the core, between, if I talk about the aura, between the heart chakra all the way to the boundary of the aura. There's a constant entering into relationship with what's out there, how it affects the boundary, the information that gets sent into the heart of the cell, the heart of the brain. In this case, when I'm talking about the aura, the heart of the energy field. And from there, different things can emerge. Now, if we're just victims, then all that's going on is that boundary is kind of like a defense structure, and it gets triggered, and it just kind of like, it just pushes back on things. Like the way a healthy cell would do if it's confronted to some kind of toxin or something that's no good for it, it'll just kind of like, no. But because we have this deep-seated conditioning, because we are floating in a collective unconscious with a lot of pain and suffering from the past, there's kind of like a boundary all around us that often makes it hard for us to actually be able to tell the difference between the healthy energies and the unhealthy energies, between life enhancing and life inhibiting energies. Please notice I'm not saying good, bad, negative, positive. I'm trying to like talk outside of a duality in a polarized system. There are energies that enhance your ability to vibrate more and more life, and there are energies that constrict it. These energies that constrict it are often part of what you have come to work on in this body, in this field, as this incarnation. So it's not good or bad, negative or positive. So to come back to this idea of the true brain of the cell being the boundary, what most of us have gone through as children, for most of us that have had different forms of trauma as children, and I have yet to meet a human being that has no trauma, which I don't even know what would be the goal in coming here if you don't bring some trauma into the field in order to work it out. But what I want to say is that when we go through trauma, there's different possibilities of what to do. Some people will just contract their field, like as much as they can, as densely as they can, so that they don't have to feel anything around them. Generally speaking, people that come on calls like this, that's not the choice they made. The people that have densified and contracted their fields are normally people that have very, very 3D lives. And basically they're doing everything they can to not have anything mess around with the schedule and the routine and what they need in order to feel safe. So my talk isn't really addressed to the person that's done that, because they have a lot of work to do to expand enough and to bring enough space in for them to be able to start feeling deeper energies in them. What most of us have done, that tend to be labeled empaths and highly sensitive people and all these terms, is that what we did is we expanded our aura. We expanded our aura in order to be able to feel, to send out tethers, to send out little like to even remember doing this. I would do everything I could to expand my field enough that I could feel who was going to come into the house way before they ever came in. And so I could feel the mood they were in. Is this person going to come in angry or sad, or just in order for me to feel safe and understand what was coming at me? That's what I learned to do, really expand my field. Okay, so don't get me wrong. Most healers and people that are able to do intense energy work have expanded fields. But there's a super important difference here, is that through that process of expanding the field in order to be able to feel things coming at you from whatever, like a kilometer away while you're at it, the problem is that most of us that did that, we then displaced our consciousness into the boundary of the field, not understanding, especially if we were children, that no, you stay in the core, you stay in the heart, and you extend to feel. No, I was like 4 or 5 when I did that. So I extended, and then I was living on that extended boundary, which was way bigger than my actual aura. How could you possibly feel safe? I never felt safe as a child. And looking back, I understand it more. It wasn't necessarily just about what was going on in my environment. I was like on the outskirts of my field, not even anywhere near my central line. Of course, I didn't feel safe. I was hyper aware of everything coming at me, but I had no grounded core and place from which I could be and know, hey, I'm here, I got you, it's all good, while I could feel things coming. So I have no doubt that there's more than one person on this call and more than one person that's going to listen to this video that might get a little aha moment from that. Because that's what we've done. We have learned to live in an expanded state, right on the boundary of it, to feel what's coming at us in order to be able to assess how to feel safe. What that also leads to as behavior is that the only time we ever do really feel safe is when we're alone. So for me as a child, being alone in my room and drawing or listening to music, or it's even better with my door locked, so no possibility of someone storming in, that's the only time I truly relaxed. Now, our goal this year is to work on our pillar in order to be pillars of light. A pillar of light is completely centered in the central line. A pillar of light is centered in the heart, grounded to the earth, anchored up into source, and able to extend its field while always remaining within the center. You stay in the center. That's the only way to feel safe, because it's the only place that you're truly home. Everything out there, it's just all emanating from you. So if you're out there instead of being in here, that's not the place from which you can truly cultivate presence and power. And I'm not talking power like, I got power. Power, the power to be completely still and present no matter what's coming at you, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what wave of the collective unconscious comes and tries to topple you over. Some of the best healers in the world, that is what they're able to do. They are able to stay completely centered in their heart, yet they are able to expand their field. Some of them, like, bring it on as big as the entire freaking earth, but they're still centered within themselves. They're able to feel everything going on. We heal by feeling. What we feel, we can heal. And they hold space for that and offer compassion and presence. That's what I want us to do as pillars as we advance throughout the second half of the program this year. Right now, we're still working on clearing the field so that as much energy and space is available in it for, I feel like using terms from Castoyed's, shut up, Julie, so that we can allow the highest potentials to be what emerges from the field. Because everything's already in there. Everything is already in the field. We're not trying to do anything to make something happen that comes from out there somewhere. It's all already within the field, whether of us, whether of the heart of the cell, whether of the collective unconscious of humanity. It's all already there. And what we want is to be able to hold a frequency that's high enough and inclusive enough that it just lifts, it just entrains. It's like an entrainment process. It just brings up from the field what corresponds with it. So the alignment, the decision of what we offer our energy and our vessel to is a huge part of that equation, as well as, you know, karmic proclivities, basically, depending on what you have come to work on and bring more light into. The true brain of the cell is its boundary. You, as a conscious being, you want to be centered in your heart and receiving information from the boundary. We want it to be porous enough that you can receive information. And we want you to be centered enough in your heart that you can be in the place where you respond, where you are able to respond, not react, respond. We respond from the heart. The mind, in order to be calm and relaxed, needs you to be in your heart. And from there, we're able to let the mind know what we're going to do with whatever information is around. I'm a little bit excited about the cellular breathing. I just can't wait to go into it. I think there's a little bit more I want to say. Not too much, but just a little bit more. I want to just remind you what we're doing. We have been spending time since January working on clearing out and expanding the space of our field. We started off in January working the central line, energy coming down, energy coming up. We did February and March around the left side and right side, the potential energy and the actualization energy, the feminine and the masculine, the yin, the yang. Then we just did the last 2 months, April and May, around the front and the back, which is the will center, the will side of your chakras, and the emotion centers, the front of your chakras, which are about you absorbing and intaking emotion and understanding it and emitting it as well. Now, June, our last month before we hit the half mark of the year, we are doing the last of the 4 movements I wanted to do. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and now we're doing 4th. I need to have like 10 hands going all these directions at once, right? To really give you the idea of what I'm trying to say. The core and the emanation, like the rays of a sun, to the boundary and then back to the center. And this, to come back to what I just said at the beginning, this movement is not, it has no linearity to it. It's not a top down, left, right, front, back. It's core, all directions, boundary. All directions back, core, right? So the only way you could talk about that, if you want to talk in linear terms, I think it's like a Buddhist term, the way of the 10 directions, right? So it's how you would define a circle, basically. So there's the top down, the front, the back, the left, the right, but also the sideway, you know? That's about the only way you could talk about that in terms of directions, which involve lines and more boxes. So tonight, no lines, no tops, no bottoms, no rights, no lefts, no fronts, no backs. Just core, expansion, boundary, contraction, core, expansion, boundary. So we're going to be playing with that movement of going into the core and expanding in all the space, all the way to the boundary and back in. And it's going to be awesome. And I think that's all I want to say. So, okay. Just making sure. One little thing I want to say is I spent a decade of my life in university trying to find a way to talk about nonlinear reality in a linear way. And I'm now old enough and wise enough to realize that that was really dumb. You know how like the more you grow and the more you evolve, the more you start realizing that some of what you thought you knew is you don't know shit. So basically, I've come to realize in the last couple of years that I was trying to I wanted linear mind to understand the nonlinear so much that I was like trying to fit the nonlinear into linear. And that's kind of the equivalent of trying to fit the entire universe in one planet. It just doesn't work. And thank God that I didn't succeed in boxing up the nonlinear unlimited quantum reality. So few that my ego doesn't get to decide what the hell's going on in my life. And yeah, understand this. Don't try to box in what is beyond the ability of your rational mind to understand. Feel it, commune with it, explore it and experience it. It's a deeply subjective experience, and that is not a bad thing. Deeply subjective, experiential is how you get to know, feel, and experience God, divine energy, whatever word you want to put on that. It is a nonlinear force. It is vast, undetermined, undeterminable. And in order for you to actually have a true experience of it, you need to get out of the box. You need to expand. Into your heart is the metaphor we use, but there's a lot of truth to it because your heart ain't linear. And I don't know why I just became Southern, but your heart is not linear. Your heart functions at a completely different form of understanding and intelligence. So just remember that if you catch yourself trying to make meaning, make things make sense that are beyond the ability of the rational mind to put things in a box, catch yourself and go, oh, I was doing it. 1 second, let me sit back and expand into my much higher mind and actually have the experience of it, not the thought of it. So Okay, that's my that's my parentheses. So to you who has gotten to watch this on YouTube, we are about to go into a 1 hour long meditation that will be very, very expansive. And if you would like to join us, you can either use the link to book a call with me and find out about the program, or it's possible as well to purchase meditations as an audio. So reach out if you feel so inclined and you're like, we're right here.